Hi guys, welcome to the River's Edge. Kelly Rivers here, your host, and I have the lovely and talented Dr. Allison Brown on with me today. I haven't been online in a week because you may or may not know that YouTube gave me the boot last week. So this is my first day back on Thursday, April 22nd, and I'm very happy to be back and see you guys again or hear from you guys. So Dr. Allison Brown is an author, educator, and seeker. In 2014, her search for reconciliation between a newfound spirituality and her traditional Christian upbringing led her to an amazing journey of self-discovery. As a result, Allison's passion is to share those lessons and insights with those who are on their own journey of awakening. She has authored a book that just came out 2 weeks ago, The Journey Within, A Christian's Guide to 14 Non-Traditional Spiritual Practices, published by Cactus Moon. And her website is www.drallisonbrown.com. Thank you so much for coming. Yay.
Hey, thrilled to be here and thrilled to be one of your first interviews as you come back to you naughty girl.
I know. It's easy to get in trouble these days.
Yes.
I get the boot for everything. So thank you guys for joining. I see Angela's on, Angela Robinson. So nice to see you guys back on in Sid World. I love it. These are two of the subscribers that are very loyal listeners. So
Awesome.
Happy to be back. I thought this was a cool topic. So Allison and I became acquainted through my channel, the YouTube channel, and we talked about doing this video on her journey from religion to spirituality, because there's a lot of people who have done that similar thing, or there's a lot who don't understand why you do that. Like they already have their religious beliefs, like what is spirituality and why would you even go there? And it's all the ins and outs of it. So 2014 is when you very first started looking into moving away from religion, or how's your background?
Well, it's sort of progressed over a number of years, very, very slowly. I was raised very conservative Christian, raised in the Episcopal Church, and then we transitioned after I got married into the Methodist Church, which is kind of like a little bit Christian light. And they weren't quite as stoic. We could laugh and cry and do things like that in church. And there was a good group of people. But since I was about 13, and I think a lot of us can relate to the questions that you have as you start to unravel what it means to be a Christian, when you become confirmed, for instance, or you start questioning things. And so I would question things around age 13, and my priest at that time made it very clear that those weren't questions they wanted to answer, and we shouldn't cover that ground anymore. So I learned to just sort of accept what I was told. Just kept going, had children. It was your church can become oftentimes your social hub as well. And so all of your friends and your family are all affiliated with that. And so it's kind of hard to throw that away. But the questions kept coming. And at one point, I was probably about 30 years old. I had a moment where God spoke to me. Claircognizance is what I would recognize that as now. I had a message and I didn't know why or where it was coming from, other than presumably God. And I was supposed to start a hands-on healing team in my church. Now, I was not woo-woo, of course, and I didn't know a lot about that. But I had been around enough Christians that laid hands on each other. So I went to the pastor and I said, I'm supposed to come talk to you about starting a hands-on healing team in the church. And he said, I knew you were coming. And I said, well, I guess we got the same message. So we did, and that was beautiful and a wonderful thing. And it was interesting because at that moment I knew two things. I knew, number one, God was speaking to me and that I could be used in his service. And I knew that I had a healing path. That was the way I was going to be used. So a few years later, as I'm still struggling with the basic tenets of Christianity, we ended up moving to South Carolina from Texas. And I started to fall away from the church. We just couldn't find another church family that was similar to our one in Texas. And I started hearing about something called Reiki. And it took really about 4 years of thinking about Reiki, hearing about Reiki, talking to people about Reiki, to be unafraid enough or courageous enough to explore it. Because I grew up in a household where we couldn't talk about things like meditation or the Exorcist movie, if you watch that, you're going to hell, or just anything that came from the East, was of the devil. Something was going to attach to you. You were going to go to hell. You were going to, have these evil entities and things going on. So it's really a fear-based construct. And so it's not so much trying to expand your box outside of Christianity as much as overcome the fear. That's really the lesson, is to overcome the fear. And so eventually, after about 4 years, like I said, of looking into Reiki, I went and ventured into a class where I learned Reiki, because I really wanted to see how it coincided with what I already knew about hands-on healing. I was still very nervous, but it was the first time I really stepped out in spite of the fear. And it was beautiful. I realized, right at that moment, I realized that what I knew as the Holy Spirit was the same as the Reiki energy. In other words, the healing energy was coming from the same place, the universe, God, Holy Spirit, whatever you wanted to call it. And so what I have realized since then, which that was 2014, is that really it's just a matter of bridging the terminology. Because a lot of the things, the Christian concepts, are really the same that we talk about in the New Age spiritual community, light worker community. It's the same thing. It's just different terminology and different lingo. So yes, in 2014, once I took the Reiki journey, which we kind of call that a gateway drug into all things metaphysical, because just about everybody that you ask is Reiki trained or has some sort of experience with Reiki. Then it just started blooming. My awakening started blooming in earnest at that point.
And that was 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can hear it. Echo?
You're sounding good on my end, but
can you guys listening? Am I on your computer? Oh, it went away. Okay. Well, every time I spoke, I was hearing myself speak again. I'm like, okay, that's weird.
Frustrating. Angela, good job. You're taking a Reiki class. I love that.
Yeah, that's cool. I've never taken Reiki. I don't know much about it. So when you were still in your Christian church, what is hands-on healing? You were doing hands-on healing at the church, and then that led you to Reiki? Mm-hmm. We never had that. I grew up in Arkansas. We went to a Baptist church, and we never had any that I know of, any hands-on healing.
Yeah, I think there are, it's probably maybe half and half. I don't really know what the statistics are, but a lot of people are comfortable with laying hands on people to pray for them, touching them when they pray for them. So essentially it's the same thing, laying on of hands, we call it. Jesus did that. And so, yeah. So
how were you able to walk away and let go of the fear-based that so many religions are based on? It's like, you have to do this. Like you were saying, you're going to go to hell if you do this. The devil made you do it. The devil's in everything. How are you able to let go of that and realize it's really, life's all about love, loving from your heart, being connected with your spirit. And it's not about being fearful of the devil every day of your life.
Right. Well, it wasn't really a one day to the next kind of thing where one day I'm scared and the next day I'm not. I mean, it takes a number of years to overcome 40 years worth of fear and indoctrination. And when you're in the Christian church, and this is not to slight the church, because there are beautiful people in there, and it can be a path to God, a path of understanding. But when you're in there, you don't really quite understand that it's based on fear. You might say, well, I don't walk around afraid or anything like that. But when you step away from it and you can view it from the outside, you realize that a lot of the lessons and concepts are fear-based. They really are. But you don't know any different because that's what you're raised with. So it took a number of years, probably from 2014 to about, I would say maybe 2017 or so, to be able to really not care what people thought. Because what it ends up being is a fear of judgment. You're afraid of being judged. I mean, that's a big thing in the church anyway. You're judged by God all the time, right? Because he's vengeful and, this and that. And so it was about letting go of the fear of what other people thought. And at this point, I really don't care what people think of me. I mean, you have to live your own truth in integrity and from a place of love. I'm not angry at anybody. I'm not upset with them. I don't hate my fellow Christian friends or anything like that. And what was interesting is I remember the moment when I came out we all have our coming out moment, whatever that looks like. And mine was coming out to my Christian friends and family that I felt like I really I no longer resonated with the Christian paradigm anymore. I was invited to speak, Unity, you've heard of Unity Church and Unity Radio. And I came across fellow author Deborah Moffat, who ended up being a wonderful mentor for me. She wrote the foreword for my book, which, if you don't mind, I will show what it looks like. The Journey Within. She wrote the foreword, but she asked me to be on her radio show to talk about this topic, because there are so many people who are interested in this, so many people struggling with this, so many people or light workers who have family members that they don't relate to or can't bridge those gaps. So we did an interview about this topic before, and this is what spurred the idea of a book on. And it was the highest rated Unity radio program for that quarter, because so many people are interested. And I remember doing the radio show, and it wasn't live, it was taped, but it was going to broadcast the next day or something. And I thought, well, this is it. I'm going out in front of God and everybody with no clothes on. They're all going to know now that I'm either a blasphemer or I'm going to hell or whatever it is. So I waited for the fallout because I was still nervous. And the next day the fallout didn't come. I thought all my friends on Facebook who were from the church, they might, drop me or, not speak to me anymore or whatever. It never happened. It never happened. And so that is one of the biggest lessons for people, is that when you step out in integrity and in love, in your truth, you're protected, you're guided. You don't have to worry. You're not going to get hate mail. You're going to be okay. The things that we think about that could be catastrophic really don't happen. So once that happens a number of times, it's easier and easier to step out with courage.
I agree with you. The church. Oh, there's that again. I don't know why it's there. I'm just going to keep talking and pretend I can hear it. I can hear it on your end, though. I can hear it in your, and now it goes away. It's weird, people. I don't know what's happening. So I agree. The church is a great place, and it helps so many people when they have a place to go to and open up to people, and there's someone there for them. And I think it is a stepping stone into what really spirituality is. And the church has so many limitations and so many beliefs that are man-made, that have nothing to do with God and your spirit. And it's like religion is man-made, first of all. And then it's a great stepping stone, but then but a lot of people never leave that. So you had the curiosity and wanted to know more, and starting with the healing, right? And then you started looking into more areas. And so someone who is still in religion and doesn't see the bigger picture, what are some similarities that would help them make that connection? I know reading your book would be very helpful, but just in this conversation, like, what is something that a bridge that helped them make the jump into realizing religion is a man-made?
Well, and I do cover that in quite a bit of detail in the first couple of chapters. We talk about the Bible and all of that sort of stuff. So it addresses not only your heart, but your head. So in the first couple of chapters, I talk about my own method of reconciliation with it, because even though I knew these things in my heart, I had to reconcile it in my head as well, so that consciously I would feel okay, or maybe I was developing my argument or my justification if somebody were to come and confront me, but they didn't. But it had to make sense in the heart and the head. But there's so many things like Christian contemplation is the same thing as meditation. We just call it something different. And then, of course, the Reiki energy, it's universal life force energy. It's the energy that animates all of us, that animates everything. And so that's the healing energy that we work with, whether it's in the church or not. There are a lot of new age practices that Christians unfortunately just throw out because it has a new age kind of title. But these things have been practices since before Jesus walked the earth. So, there had to be something to it if these are ancient traditions that have stood the test of time. And I talk a lot about Jesus and what he has done. I mean, Jesus levitated. Jesus came to his believers after he died. He was an apparition. He used psychic ability. He turned water into wine. He did all kinds of metaphysical events and things that we would call miracles. And yet it's okay for him, but we think that it's not okay for humans today to do those types of things. So, I mean, it's just having those types of conversations. And those are the tools that I give in the book.
Yeah, that's a good one, though, because people in religions think that they could never achieve Jesus status, or have the abilities, I should say, of Jesus. And we all do. We all have God in us. God created all of us, so we all have those abilities.
Right.
And that is a big part of connecting religion to spirituality, right? Have you talked to a lot of people? And by the way, I just saw a comment in here. I don't know where it went about the church is being owned by the cabal. I thought I saw that somewhere, but we understand that they're like the Catholic has its fair share of issues. There's no question about that. But we're talking more like, well, you were in the Southern Baptist, right? Or you went to Methodist as well?
I was in Methodist, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Methodist, and that's very different than the Catholic Church. So we're specific to her transformation, I should say, is from Southern Methodist going into spirituality. But so we're not really getting into the evil, corrupt of we all know about that.
That's a whole nother topic for another day, for sure.
That is a whole other topic. This is strictly just jumping in from religion and going into spirituality and how it connects. Have you helped a lot of people and have people come to you and you've been able to help them understand the concepts of spirituality?
Well, I'll tell you what, my husband and I do a lot of work. He's a trance channel. I do spiritual hypnosis, and he's also a psychic medium. So we do see a lot of people in terms of new on their awakening journey. And I'll tell you that a number of them are Reformed Catholics or ousted Catholics or people that had a really difficult time, or they had abuse in their history and didn't find comfort within the church. Or they had a bad experience in the church and the church is all or nothing. And so they felt alienated, or their parents disowned them because they were gay or whatever it is. And so we do see a lot of people like that. And when they hear my story, they do feel better and they're comforted. And the reason I wanted to speak to you specifically is because I know the kinds of people that are in your audience, beautiful beings of truth and the light and light workers and healers and all of that sort of thing. And I think, although they get the topics, they understand what we're talking about, but I would venture to say that most of them have family members or friends that think they're weird, they're the black sheep, they're doing something evil, whatever it is, they're going to hell, right? Particularly a lot of our parents. And so this offers a way for them to open up a line of communication with those folks.
Yeah, I love that. There's so many rules in religion. They think psychics are devil worshiping people. Tarot cards are devil. I mean, you can make anything evil. You can say anything. Oh, you worship the devil if you do that. I mean, anything's evil if you want it to be. It's a crazy concept to me. But you were able to let all that go and just choose love over.
Eventually. And what I write about in the book right before we get into the meat of it, because that's what we talk about in this book. I give you 14 practices, and some of them are mediumship, tarot, Reiki, Qigong and acupuncture, all sorts of things like that. And what I tell them these are tools. These are 14 tools for you. And a tool can be good or bad. A knife in the hands of a murderer can be a weapon of destruction, but a knife in the hands of a doctor is a beautiful thing and, a tool of healing. So these are tools. They're not good or bad in themselves. It is what you make of it. And so really what the question ends up being is, are you brave enough? Are you courageous enough to explore some things that have the possibility to open you up to amazing, miraculous, everyday life experiences, an amazing, beautiful connection with your source, with your God, with your angels, with Mother Mary, whoever it is that you want to communicate with. In the church, I cried at the hymns. I could tell that I was being touched in the church, and I could experience God in the church, but it was nothing at all like what I experience now. I mean, I have what we say, a personal relationship with God and with Jesus. Heck yeah, I have a personal relationship with them. I mean, I know them by heart. My husband's primary guide is Enoch, for goodness sake, which was Noah's grandfather. And my husband was not raised in the church. So Enoch comes to people specifically who don't know him because it gives more legitimacy. So when Enoch showed up and my husband started channeling him in his first spiritual hypnosis session, he was like, who the hell's Enoch? He comes out of the session and I was in the living room and he's like, oh, who's Enoch? And this guy started speaking through me. I'm like, Enoch? He was in the church. He's pretty big. What did you find out? And the practitioner was new at that time. And she said, we didn't know. We were so shocked. We just kept to the script of his questions, because you go in when you're a client, you go in with your questions you want to ask. So I'm like, my God, if you had Enoch, what would you ask, right? So, if you really want that personal relationship with God that you say you want, open yourself up to unlimited possibilities. It's just amazing. I can't tell you.
Oh, I'm going to read some of the comments. I'm going to ask you about Reiki also. She does Reiki services. Do you do that online? Do you have to be there in person to do a Reiki service?
You can do distance healing. It's for me personally, for Reiki, I prefer to do that in person, because I think I don't want to speak poorly of any healer ever, but I think there are some people that say, oh, I'm going to do a distance session, pay me $125. And you don't know if they did or not. It's hard to say. So just to keep myself out of that muck, we don't. We do some remote sessions, though. We do personal channelings remotely and spiritual hypnosis remotely. We can do surrogate sessions as well. If somebody doesn't think, if they're too left brain to get under, we'll do that too. So yes, we do some remote, not Reiki though.
So explain what is happening when you do a Reiki session. So someone who's never done Reiki, and the religious people, anyone that was watching, what does it mean? Because they say healer, they're probably gonna be like, oh, you're a liar, you're a devil worshiper. What does it mean to do the Reiki healing?
So first of all, everybody has the possibility to heal themselves. So what we're really doing is transmitting love from one human being to another with God or source or universal life energy or Holy Spirit energy running through me, out of my hands and into the client. I'm channeling God's love and plugging that into the client to activate their own healing ability, to help them sort of re-energize, to realign their energy, their healing energy. And it's a beautiful thing. When you open yourself up as a vessel, as a channel, when I say channel, not channeling anything other than this energy, this love. And it was the same thing in the church. We just prayed over people. And in that aspect too, we were connecting with our God and allowing God to do the work through us. We're a vessel.
And why can't someone just do that on their own?
I believe people can. I think they can. I think, like I said, a lot of times we have to sort of activate our mind, get our mind into it as well. And so sometimes we like to have little rituals or protocols or things, so some people just have to wrap their mind around it. So they want to go learn. And in a Reiki training, you are going to learn hand placements. You're going to learn a protocol so that until you start to feel intuitive messages working through you, like where should you place your hands, you have a protocol of hand placement, or you can follow this procedure, if you will, until you become comfortable enough to develop your own relationship with God and to do that yourself. But yeah, I think you're right. I think everybody could lay hands on somebody tomorrow and heal someone. So the same reason why if you fall and you stumble, you skin your knee or something, what do? You put your hands on it. Or if your child comes with a sore toe, you put your hands on it, and it makes them feel better because it's love.
And I like having someone there to facilitate whatever it is you're doing, because then you can just relax and go with it, and you're not really concerned about what's being done, because you're letting the other person facilitate it for you, which is lovely. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see some of the comments, people. Angela started the Reiki class. You saw that one earlier. That's so cool. So that means are you learning to become a Reiki teacher then? Is that what that means?
Probably a Reiki practitioner first, and then eventually a teacher. She could, yeah.
Okay. And my mother is in the chat, and she wants to know if that's Buddha behind you.
I'm not real good on all my Buddhas. There's several different figures. And I just found that one at the same place where we found the driftwood that we made this beautiful tree. You can't see the top of it, but it's a driftwood tree because I'm operating in our event space called the Treehouse. And when we were there, I just saw this Buddha, if you will, and I thought it was real cute. So I thought, that's beautiful. I'm going to put that in my space. But again, it isn't about, and I address this also in the book because I was afraid of things like that, because it makes it seem like you are worshiping that figure. And it isn't about worshiping anything, God, Jesus, or any other thing. It's about revering your own self because you have God within. So that's a very important question. I'm glad she asked that.
Yes, because I know
he said he didn't want to be worshipped.
Yeah, she's not into Buddha. She thinks everyone worships Buddha.
No.
Which is not the case. Sorry, a bird just flew in my living room, but he's gone now.
It's a sign.
No, it was a huge pigeon. I'm glad he didn't stay. Okay. It's a sign, Mom. It's a sign. Okay. Erica says, I'm a light worker, an old soul hypnotherapist, and was married to a Presbyterian minister.
Wow.
Did you hear that? This bird's trying to break into my living room. Okay, sorry, I'm distracted by this bird. I was expecting lightning to strike me when I stepped out. That's funny. A light worker, an old soul hypnotherapist, married to a Presbyterian manager. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The pigeon agrees. Galactic Greg, the YouTube mic. I think maybe you had YouTube on. I don't know. My YouTube's not on right now, but we don't have any more sound effects, so I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm.
My mom says the Bible talks about false prophets in the end times. What do you have to say about that, Allison?
I agree with you. And I would think that those of us in the spiritual community are realizing who is acting from a true and divine place and who is not. What's really interesting is 2020 and 2021 is revealing the truth to a lot of us. And even those of us in the spiritual community are recognizing that people we may have followed on YouTube or, listened to their channelings or things like that, it's starting to kind of rub us the wrong way. We're starting to recognize that perhaps it's not on the up and up, or it's not our truth any longer. And so what I think it's about personal discernment. We all have the answers within, and we need to go within. And that's why the book is called The Journey Within, because you have to seek those answers yourself. You have to see what resonates with you. So whatever I say doesn't make it right. Whatever Kelly says, it doesn't make it right for you. You have your own path, all of us, not just meaning your mom. We all have our own path. And so we have to see what resonates. If you come into a situation or come in contact with a person or a concept or a teaching, and you feel nothing but love, warmth, happiness, joy, it brings you up, then I would say that's resonating with you and you need to stick with that, at least for that time. But if you come into anything and the hair rises up on your hand, or you know what that feels like, that little gnawing in the pit of your stomach, or something just doesn't feel right, you feel uneasy, run the other way, no matter who it is or what they're saying.
So true. And you said it perfectly. We have the answers within. We don't need to go to a preacher, a priest, anyone. You don't need to see anyone ever again. It's all in here. You just connect with spirit and you'll get the answers. And there's people that maybe don't have an easy time connecting, right? So they do listen to people who channel and who they can resonate with. It doesn't mean they're worshiping that person. It just means they're helping them along the path.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, Kelly, because it isn't easy. It isn't easy, and a lot of us have a hard time meditating. We're left-brained. But everybody knows what it feels like when you come up to something and you feel uneasy. Even if you walk in an elevator and there's somebody in there that gives you the creeps, step off the elevator. Mm-hmm. Or you're watching something on TV and it makes you feel weird or uncomfortable, turn it off. Or if you're watching the news and you keep finding yourself in fear or in anger, turn it off. We all can recognize those body symptoms or signs. And I think if we start tuning into our body, that's probably the first. We try to make it sound like it's this big thing. Let's meditate and you're going to know everything. Well, that's not the way it works. It starts with your body, and start listening to the subtle feelings that you're getting.
And what do you have to say about the Bible? Because we know the Bible has been rewritten by man many times. But some people believe that is the word of God. Every word in there came from God. which we know is absolutely not the case. But what do you have to say about that, about the Bible?
Well, first of all, it was written by fallible humans, and you can look at the Gospels and see that each one has a different story from a different perspective for a different reason. There's that. And then there is the whole idea of, should we read the Bible literally or not? So did all of the animals on Noah's Ark come in 2 by 2, or were there 3 of one, or was there 1 of one? Or what? I mean, are these metaphors or are they literal? And if they are literal, then there are certain things that you would read in the Bible that really would make you kind of question its validity, right? So then if we say it's not literal and it is much of it's metaphorical or message-based, where we have to go within and figure out the message, well, then how do we interpret it? And whose interpretation do we use? Do we use our pastors? Do we use our own? Do we go to a concordance and read that? How do we come up with those interpretations and whose is right? Then you have the King James version, and then you have the Good News version, and they're quite different. And if you read the same passage from both of those, you might get an entirely different meaning. So there are so many reasons why I think the Bible is more of a personal tool for you to take away what you're getting out of it. What are you getting out of that message? So and I like this, like an oracle card, open the Bible. You're struggling, open the Bible and see what pops up in front of you. And what does that mean for you? And if you look at that same Bible verse today versus a month from now versus a year from now, you might get an entirely different message because of where you are in your life at that time. So, I talk about all of that in much more detail in the book, all those very same things. And there are just many, many reasons why we have to be careful about throwing a Bible verse and saying, oh, well, the Old Testament says that mediumship is from the devil. Okay, so yeah, but in the New Testament, Jesus is doing these things. So why is it okay in the New Testament with Jesus and it's bad in the Old Testament? Or why in the Old Testament is it okay an eye for an eye? I mean, we would agree in this day and age, a peeping Tom, do you gouge his eyes out? Probably not. So there are a lot of things that went on in the Old Testament that are questionable now because we're in a different era. And so for all of those reasons, we have to be careful with when we use the Bible as ammunition against some of these spiritual practices.
I agree. I believe YouTube on. You have YouTube open on your computer?
I don't think so.
That's what I keep hearing.
I don't think so, but
so Galactic Greg, the church teaches you to fear God. You don't need to fear God. He doesn't want you to fear him. God is unconditional love and acceptance, not fear. Totally right on, Greg. It's all about love. It's not about preaching fear and living. I mean, no one should be living in fear. That's a terrible place to be. You should be living in love with an open heart. Did you have it open? Did you find it?
I didn't have it open. I had my email open. I closed that, but.
Oh, okay. I don't know. My mother says, you cannot achieve the status of Jesus. You are not God.
I mean, I can't speak to that. I think Jesus was definitely an ascended master.
100%.
He was a being who never, I think, he was human, yes, but he never really lost his connection or understanding that he had with Source.
He was Source energy, right?
Yeah, and I think he innately knew that. And so he was a model for us. Now, could we achieve that kind of status? We could, because we are all a piece of the divine like he was. Will we? Yep. Probably not. Just simply because we have the veil. Most of us still have the veil. And we came onto this earth now to have a human experience. That's what we wanted. He came to earth to show us the way. So he had a different mission than we do. Most of us don't have that high level mission. So we need to struggle and go through the learning experiences and, the crises and the beautiful moments, all of the things that teach us what it is to be human. And so I agree with your mom. We're probably not all going to to be there, but I don't think he was the only one. And that's where I differ from most Christians. I think there were other ascended masters that walked the earth that were also there to teach maybe a different group of people.
Right. Yeah, different parts of the world, different ascended masters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Angela says, my grandmother and her sister were both ministers of spiritualist churches. I grew up with all of this. So awesome to see it becoming such a big thing now. I used to get shamed a lot by many. Oh, this is very nice to see, Angela. It would have been nice to grow up in a spiritual church.
Mm-hmm.
But we had a good church too in Arkansas. I just expanded beyond that.
Sammy has something to contribute back there.
I know. Well, hey, are you tuning into him? What does he want?
My husband just left. I should have grabbed him for a minute. He could communicate, but he was checking to make sure that there wasn't anything on our end causing that noise.
Okay. Yeah, tell him to come back. Her husband. Yes, I know. I see. We all see you, Sammy.
We had a nice conversation with Sammy a couple of days ago. That was beautiful.
Her husband did a reading on Sammy on Sunday and said Sammy doesn't like being a cute, fluffy dog. He thinks he's a big lion, and he's going to prove to people how tough he is by biting them. Attacking them. Like this. That's what he does. Okay, let's see some other. Oh, Sid World said that is Buddha Shakimoni.
Thank you for that. I know there are a bunch of different ones whose names I have a hard time pronouncing, so I don't claim to be an expert for sure.
So Donna is saying, can you recommend a good Reiki school, and can you learn Reiki online?
Okay, so ever since 2020 and everything shut down and went online, a number of people who only did in person started, I guess, because that's their stream of income, of course, started looking outside the box, and there's nothing wrong with that. For example, QHHT, Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique, which is also spiritual hypnosis that Dolores Cannon developed, forbids you from doing remote sessions. So beyond quantum healing, which is the practice that I work with, that was developed by Candace Krall Goldman, a protege of Dolores, is a little bit more outside of the box. For that reason, it's an evolution. And you can do remote sessions, for example, and you can also work with other gifts that you might have. If you are a psychic medium or if you know Reiki, you can use those things in your session, whereas Dolores said no for QHHT. So all of that is a long-winded way of saying, yes, you could. Reiki does work long distance. And when you receive your attunement, it can be done long distance. And I know when you have a trusted practitioner that it will work. For my husband and I personally, we really prefer to have clients in person because there's a lot of learning that takes place and you're within each other's energy. It's just different. You're still within the other people's energy when you're online, but I really like the feeling of having those people there with you. So yes, you can, but I would advise anybody to be careful and make sure that you have a good recommendation for a trusted teacher if you're going to take it online.
Okay. Can you talk about hypnosis? Because that's one thing religions are completely against. At least so I heard.
I mean, this sounds trite, but when you drive your car down the road and you get to work and you remember back to that light, oh gosh, was that light green? I don't remember going through that intersection at all. You're in a hypnotic trance. You zone out for a little bit, or some people daydream and they sit at their desk and they daydream, and next thing you know, 10 minutes has gone by and you don't remember it.
Yep.
All of those are trance states, and that's all I mean when we talk about hypnosis. Hypnosis does not mean that you go unconscious, fix your problems, wake up and everything is good. It's not about that. Most of the people who undergo hypnotherapy or spiritual hypnosis or something like that, they're aware of their surroundings. It's just that you're in such a relaxed state that your conscious mind is allowed to step aside and allow your unconscious to step forward. And about I would say probably 95% of the population, they remember what happens during the hypnosis process, and it seems kind of like a dream, so you'll forget a lot of it. And that's why we record it and give you a recording of it, because you're going to want to listen and remember later on. So yeah, it's hypnosis is not a scary, weird thing. I'm not going to hold a string with a marble at the end and wave it back and forth till you're under my control. And it isn't anything like the fair or the circus when people get up on stage.
Oh, so stupid.
It's not like that. I'm not making my clients cluck like a chicken or any of that.
It's like you reprogram your subconscious. You go into the theta brainwave state when you first wake up in the morning or when you're falling asleep. And then that's a hypnotic state, right? And then you're reprogramming if you listen to some songs.
Yeah, they're in either the light alpha or the theta state. And it is similar to when you're waking or when you're drifting off to sleep. You're kind of in that in-between stage. Yes.
That's state. Okay.
In fact, if you fall asleep during hypnosis, we can't get a lot done. So we don't want you to fall asleep.
Okay. Jolanta. I know of a Reiki practitioner practicing dark magic and actually hurting people that crossed her path. Well, you should avoid her. Yeah. I mean, people can use anything for evil, right? I mean, it's unfortunately it's a real thing.
I have a real soft spot in my heart for seekers. And yeah, that's kind of a hard topic, because when people come to me, there are a couple of people in my community that I wouldn't recommend for a session, but I also don't want to speak poorly of anybody, let alone a fellow light worker. And I think a lot of times, well, I know that we write our own script for this earth. We script out the obstacles, we script out the intersections with people and the challenges and all of the things that we want to encounter for our life's learning. And so sometimes you script out an intersection with a person who doesn't have your best interest at heart for a reason. I've had a couple of those lessons myself, and although they were very painful, I learned really quickly what I was supposed to take away from that. So yeah, I'm sad that happens, that there are people like that out there, but sometimes we learn a lot and it's productive in the end.
No, I mean, everything in life's an experience and a lesson, right? You can choose to learn from it, or you can choose not to and then repeat the same mistakes, which I don't recommend. I've already been down that road. I don't need to. Yeah, Erica says hypnosis is incredible therapy. Yes, totally.
It really is. Yes.
And Sammy does love to hug. He is such a hug. That's why he's crying. He wanted me to hug him. It's this new thing. He just likes to put his butt on the desk here and then put his paws around me. Oh, I'm talking about you. This is such an. Oh, that was okay. That hurt my ears. That hurt your ears. Okay, let me put him down. He is having a moment. Where's your husband when we need him? You can talk as well.
That's the after show excitement.
I know, right? He's such a crazy doggy. Okay, so you're offering Reiki sessions you prefer in person, and there was another service, right? Was there something else what else are you offering that people can contact you for?
So we will do personal channelings. My husband can channel your higher self and or your guides. And I facilitate that because he is one of the 5% of people that is what we call a somnambulist, which means he goes into trance and he's completely out. So when he wakes up, he doesn't remember what happened. And so I facilitate those, of course, to keep him protected and safe and to ask the clients questions. And we will do those remotely. You can be present with that for that experience and send me a list of questions and we'll go over that. Very, very healing, enlightening, especially for people who feel like they might not be able to get into a hypnotic trance or for a more expedited session, because my spiritual hypnosis practice, BQH, takes about 3 hours because I really develop a rapport with the client and talk to them about what we want to accomplish. And then we go into the trance state. And especially if it's your first time, it takes a little bit of time. But Will can induce himself into a trance in a couple of minutes. And then we can go a full hour and ask your questions. So sometimes it's a little quicker that way as well. So we mostly do that.
Oh, sorry. So can you explain what that process is? So someone who's never heard of that or seen it, about your husband going into a trance state, what does it mean to connect to your guides? And then what is actually happening when he loses consciousness or he doesn't remember?
So he says he goes into a void. It's kind of a blank state of stasis, which I've heard Cryon say stasis means no time. And so he's not aging. So I guess eventually he'll be like a kid again and I'll be an old lady. I don't know. But he goes into this place of stasis and he allows, like when I let the Reiki work through me, he allows them to speak through him using his voice. So the beings will drop in and use his voice to speak. And so our intent typically with those surrogate type sessions are to connect with the client's higher self. The client's higher self will present, and then we ask the questions. And we can ask about past life issues. We can ask about current crises, or what's up with this person, or why did I come into that family, or what's up with my career, any of those types of things. And your higher self will answer that. Now, a lot of times, your higher self isn't going to just say, hey, this is exactly what you need to do to get from A to B with no problems, because that's not the point, right? And if they give you all of the answers,
that's
you're not going to learn anything. But they will shed a lot of light on your situations and give you some, profound guidance and wisdom and things to think about, and especially in terms of history and historical things that have happened to you. So if you're still suffering from a childhood trauma, or past life things are bleeding in, we can get clear answers to all of that. So Will sits in the chair and does his breath work, takes him about 60 seconds, and then they will present to us verbally.
Okay, awesome. Your husband's online.
Is he watching?
Yeah, someone asked where you live, and he responded that Charleston, South Carolina. I've always wanted to go to Charleston. I've never been there.
Oh my gosh. I love it here. It's beautiful.
I just picture tree-lined streets, these huge trees covering the street. All right, Sammy, you're going back. All right, Will, if you're watching, you can tune in to Sammy while we're talking, because he is wrestling. Maybe he's hungry. I don't know.
I will plug his. He has a YouTube channel, The Collective, channeled by Will Brown, which is what you can see in the chat box there. But if you wanted to see what it looks like, I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, he did some pet channelings that are on there. Most of the time, because we do a monthly channeled message from the collective, and it's free to anybody who wants to participate. Treehouse-events.com will take you to our calendar, and there's a Zoom link. You can participate wherever you are, and you can watch how it works, and you can submit a question if you wish. So if you want to watch a live channeling, you can, for those who haven't seen that. And if you wanted to see some examples of pet channelings, check out his YouTube channel, because that's really cool to watch. It's a really neat thing to watch.
Yeah, and I can put up part of my Sammy channeling.
That would be neat, because you can see the personality come through.
So Sammy, those of you, well, none of you would know this, you've never met Sammy, but he attacks people's feet. And so the first thing Will said, so funny. The first thing Will said, he's like, I tuned into Sammy and all I saw was this shoe coming at my face. I'm like, that's totally Sammy. He attacks feet all the time.
And he did not see your question, so he didn't know you said anything about feet or biting feet or anything. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Oh, it's so funny. Yeah, so you guys should go check it out, the pet channeling. I was going to ask you, so in church, they don't teach you, my church anyway, they did not teach you about your guides and what that even means. So tell us what guides are, what a person's guides are.
So we call it in BQH a wisdom team. It's just your team of spirit beings that are helping you throughout your life. Sometimes they change, so you don't necessarily have the same set of guides. Some come in for specific purposes. Some are your teachers, some just for different reasons. But I think what we can mostly relate to in the Christian church are your angels. Everybody connects with angels. Everybody knows Archangel Michael and Gabriel and all of those. Or Jesus or Mother Mary in the Catholic Church, those types of spirit beings. And a lot of people who are in the church connect with them, see them, get messages from them. And they take it very seriously. So they understand what that means. So from that aspect, that's what we're talking about when we talk about the guides. The people who are helping you, you have guardian angels. So if you get yourself into mischief and you're getting ready to die before your time, they'll step in and they'll go, not your time yet. And they're the ones that stop you from slamming into the car ahead of you. And you felt this impact and you didn't see anything. You don't know why you felt this impact, but you didn't crash. So those are the guides that we're talking about. And they can range anywhere from your deceased ancestors can be helping you from beyond, or beings that have never incarnated. They can be extraterrestrial beings, your star family, and again, ascended masters, all sorts of people, beings.
Yeah. My brother passed away a few years ago, and I believe he is now one of my guides, for sure.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah, it's awesome. So the Book of Revelation, what do you how do you connect that with the current events going on in the world? Because a lot of people right now are connecting it, right? The craziness and the chaos in the world with the Book of Revelations. What do you think?
I haven't read the Bible or looked at the Bible in a long, long time. So I can't really speak intelligently at all on what Revelation says, but I can tell you there's a lot of symbolism and metaphor that I believe is probably a prophecy of what's happening right now. So I would say to those who are still involved with Christian church and interested in that, definitely look through that, but look at it through your own internal guide. Think about it, meditate on it, and see what you think. But I definitely think there is a connection. And I think it's interesting because this is really the first time that Christians and the greater spiritual community are starting to agree on some things. Haven't you noticed that, Kelly?
Yeah, there definitely are. We're coming together in spite of because of the chaos in the world. We can now come together. We are all one. We need to, sooner we become and act like one and we're all united and come from a place of love. I mean, the faster we're going to heal this earth and this planet and all of us.
For sure.
And once people wake up to this fake, everything that's fake going on in the world right now, I mean, everything is just crazy. It's just a movie we're watching and it's helping people wake up. That's my belief anyway, that all this stuff that the media spews all the time, Biden and Kamala and all of them, it's all just fake until people wake up to the chaos and the lies and the corruption going on in the world. Because you and I haven't ever spoken about that directly, but that's my belief.
I feel like it's just so crazy. It's just so every day that I wake up and I think it can't get crazier, it gets crazier. And so right. I'm thinking it's crazy because people are being pushed into a corner to finally make a decision that they have to stop focusing on the external and start focusing on the internal. And so it's just going to keep pushing you until you're more uncomfortable until you finally wake up and
realize the government does not have control over you. You have control over you and no one else. If you're unhappy and miserable and sad, that's your fault. It's only you can help you. No one else is going to help you. And people that want handouts from the government they feel safe, security through that. And that's going to come. Yeah. It's time to let all that go.
I really, really try now not to focus so much on that because it really is just anger inducing. And there was a time when I thought I could read the headlines just to keep up and see what's going on. And I realized I don't want to get bogged down in it anymore because it's just such craziness and it really has no impact on my life. It doesn't. I'm doing my thing and I'm living my life and I'm happy and I'm outside and whatever. And I don't want to get involved with that to any great degree. But yeah, it serves as a wake-up call. And I think people need to understand that the government does not have your best interest at heart. The only one, like you said, that's going to have your best interest at heart is you, really. And so you have to find that within.
Right. And people get triggered by anything in life, really. I mean, if you're getting angry all the time, then that's a problem. You got to look at inside. You can't blame the government for your anger. You can't blame Trump for your anger. You can't blame whoever is triggering you.
Yeah, because there's always going to be something. If it's not Trump, it's Biden. It's always going to be something.
Right, because the anger's in there, something's going to trigger it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so true. All right. Do you have anything else to add before we conclude our lovely session?
It's been a blast. I just want to say, again, I think this is a really good tool for those of you who still struggle with the those members of your family or friends who just don't get you. And when next time you're at what's the next holiday coming up? Maybe 4th of July, Mother's Day, whenever you're with your family again, you can say, hey, check this book out and just see if we can have a conversation. Read this and tell me what you think, and start opening up those lines of conversation. The book is divided into 3 sections. The first one is the journey within, learning about yourself, self-discovery. The second one is all about practices that help you communicate with the beings that are out there or with the energies. And the last one is all about healing. So the different practices for healing yourself. So that's another important one right now with what we're going through.
And I think it's important to say that it's not saying, and you haven't said this at all, I'm sure you're clarifying the book, it's not about saying church is bad. It's saying it's a stepping stone. And there's something so much bigger and huge out there that we're all a part of, that church doesn't get into. And the church is a great stepping stone. Oh,
absolutely. There's nothing bad about church at all. It's about expanding the box, expanding for more opportunity, for more options, for more beauty and more joy and more connection. And can't tell you. So exciting.
Do you think, are there any spiritual churches where you are, where it is strictly spiritual based, like Angela was talking about?
Charleston has a Unity church. There's probably a Unity church in many larger metropolitan areas. Unity is good. Agape is another good one.
Yeah.
Don't you have that? You're in a little bit northern California, right?
So it's in LA.
Yeah.
I'm in northern California. Yeah. Right. It'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward with the organized religions, and probably like the corruption behind a lot of them, just falling to the wayside. Not the ones that you went to, but the other ones,
Well, I think once it starts to crumble, though, I think the trickle-down effect is going to impact everybody in every church and every school and every government building, everywhere. All things that were built on untruths or from fear are going to have to be brought down and rebuilt with love. That's just, you can't be out of integrity any longer with the energies that are coming to Earth. You have to. And that's why the spiritual community is starting to crack a little bit, because the people who really are walking their talk and living from a place of love and integrity are the ones that are, coming to the surface, and the other ones are being exposed. You can't help it. That's just what the energy is going to do.
Yeah, that's true. And they can rebuild. There's so many wonderful things about, like, my mom and grandmother's church. They all support each other. When someone's sick, they all check up on them. And it's really wonderful. It's more of a social thing, like you were saying before.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the Bible.
That's
yeah, it is. It's really, really nice. Very sweet.
Well, it was such a pleasure to have this conversation. And thanks to all of your beautiful fans out there that are joining. Your fan club.
I think he has a fan club. I don't have a fan club.
That's it. It's Sammy's fan club.
Sammy's ladies. Yeah, Angela says, thank you. Fabulous as always. Thank you, Angela, for joining, everyone else. And Donna says the church has put God in a box.
That's it. That's my fan right there, Donna Kennedy. She's my biggest fan.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. Yeah, she was one of the 2 waiting early on. All right. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you so much, Allison. I really appreciate you coming here today.
Thanks, Kelly.
Okay. Bye, guys.